Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the regularly scheduled mayor and council meeting for the town of Berlin for Monday, September 27th, 2021. Please join us in a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And before we begin, Town Administrator Fleetwood's going to give a little bit of an overview of some of our safety procedures for COVID.
If anyone needs the hand sanitizer, it's on the table in the back on your right. There are restrooms out here in the hallway with running water, hot water in, so if you need that, please. And when you depart the building tonight, I would assume everyone came in the stairwell entrance. You can go out that door, hit the bar, and you can go right on out the door.
Thank you. So before we get too far into this evening, Councilmember Purnell brought up having a discussion about an RFP for Heron Park this evening. Unfortunately, our town attorney is not here with us this evening. He's out on vacation, and we will be bringing that up at our next meeting. So thank you again for that. Item number 1 on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the regular session of September 13th, 2021.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion by Councilmember Orris.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Nur. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Let the record reflect that the minutes from our regular session of September 13th, 2021 passed unanimously with all council members present. Item number 2 is the swearing in of board and commission members, and we'll do that starting with Mr. Newt Chandler for the Planning and Zoning Commission. Mary, do you know if Kelsey left the original copy?
Yes.
Okay,
I have
perfect.
it here.
So what we'll do, Bob, if you don't mind having...
Sit down.
Yep, and then I think you're up next. All right, Newt, so let's do it so that everybody can see it. All right, so raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Newt Chandler,
I, Newt Chandler,
do swear and affirm
do swear and affirm
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States,
and that I will be faithful
that I will be faithful
and bear true allegiance
and bear true allegiance
to the state of Maryland
to the state of Maryland,
and support the Constitution
and support the Constitution
and laws thereof,
and laws thereof,
and that I will,
and that I will,
to the best of my skill and judgment,
to the best of my skill and judgment,
diligently and faithfully,
diligently and faithfully,
without partiality or prejudice,
without partiality or prejudice,
execute the office of
execute the office of
Town of Berlin Planning and Zoning Commission
Town of Berlin Planning and Zoning Commission,
according to the Constitution and laws of this state.
according to the Constitution and laws of this state.
Thank you.
Thank
Congratulations.
you, Mayor. Appreciate it.
Thank you for your service. And if you don't mind, come on over to Jeff, and he's going to get a signature for you. So up next, Bob, you get a gold star for, okay, perfect. Bob, you get a gold star for starting early.
That's good.
All right, raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Robert Palladino,
I, Robert Palladino,
do swear and affirm
do swear and affirm
that I will support
that I will support
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and that I will be faithful
and that I will be faithful
and bear true allegiance
and bear true allegiance
to the state of Maryland
to the state of Maryland
and support the Constitution
and support the Constitution
and laws thereof,
and laws thereof,
and that I will,
and that I will,
to the best of my skill and judgment,
to the best of my skill and judgment,
diligently and faithfully,
diligently and faithfully,
without partiality or prejudice,
without partiality or prejudice,
execute the office of
execute the office of
Town of Berlin Board of Appeals
Town of Berlin Board of Appeals
according to the Constitution and laws of this state.
according to the Constitution and laws of this state.
Congratulations.
I thank you.
Thank you. All right, up next, we have Miss Mary Moore for the Historic District Commission. Are we in line? Oh, you're going to throw the whole thing out of the window.
That's right.
Thank you. Can you raise your right hand and repeat after me? I, Mary Moore,
I, Mary Moore,
do swear and affirm
do swear and affirm
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United
of the
States
United States,
and that I will be faithful
and I will be faithful
and bear true allegiance
and bear true allegiance
to the state of Maryland
to the state of Maryland,
and support the Constitution and laws thereof,
and support the Constitution and laws thereof,
and that I will,
and that I will,
to the best of my skill and judgment,
to the best of my skill and judgment,
diligently and faithfully,
diligently and faithfully,
without partiality or prejudice,
without partiality or prejudice,
execute the office of
execute the office of
Town of Berlin Historic District Commission,
Town of Berlin Historic District Commission,
according to the Constitution and laws of this state.
according to the Constitution and laws of the state.
Congratulations.
My pleasure.
And I love your mask. And then up next, we'll have three members with us. They're all for the Ethics Commission. So let's start with Tom Schultes, Marie Vallone, you can all come up here together, and Brian Robertson. All right, let's try and get everybody in the frame. So for this one, rather than me stating your name, just all of you, when I say I, then say your name, if you don't mind. I
Aye. Thomas Schultes.
I, Ray Buell,
I, Brian Robertson,
do swear and affirm
Do swear and affirm
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and that I will be faithful
and that I will be faithful
and bear true allegiance
and bear true allegiance
to the state of Maryland
to the state of Maryland
and support the Constitution and laws thereof,
and support the Constitution and laws thereof,
and that I will,
and that I will,
to the best of my skill and judgment,
to the best of my skill and judgment,
diligently and faithfully,
diligently and faithfully,
without partiality or prejudice,
without partiality or prejudice,
execute the office of
execute the office of
so
Town of Berlin Ethics Commission
Town of Berlin Ethics Commission
according to the Constitution and laws of this state.
according to the Constitution and laws of the state.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Now, before you go over and sign, you're looking at a whole brand-new Ethics Commission. So you have the entire board here. They're all new. They're under the guidance of each board and commission has a staff liaison. So this particular group has Jeff Fleetwood, our town administrator. So you have somebody good at the helm. We're also going to be trying to get ethics training that typically is done biannually on the books so that everybody's up and running with everything that they need. So congratulations.
Thank you.
And then Jeff will go ahead I'll square up with you after my call. Chief? Thank you. So item number 3 on our agenda is a discussion in reference to short-term rentals, and our planning director, Dave Engelhardt, is going to run point on this.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I prepared a summary and some considerations that you got in your packets tonight for the meeting. And this was all based on our work session we held on June 28th this year. We didn't have a heck of a lot of public comment at that work session. After all, it was a work session, but you did allow some public comment. We didn't have a lot of attendance for that. And some of the items that I outlined for you, I want to give you a little explanation for. Some of the changes, additions, and corrections to that draft ordinance number 2020-03 that we discussed in June. There was some discussion at the work session about, we had in there a requirement you post the license with the license number. And it didn't actually say on the exterior, and people expressed interest in having that, so it certainly could be altered to have it posted inside and outside. or some form of window sticker. I actually, between putting this in your packets and tonight, I got actually a price on window stickers. They would be covered by the licensing fee. They are less than 50 cents a piece, so they could be visible from the road. Much like a tot finder, if you're familiar with it, we used to put those stickers in the window so the fire or rescue people could find, children who might be in their bedrooms, something that size, and it could have the license number. We could fill that in with a Sharpie at the time of issuance if we go ahead with a license. The next item was, we talked about draft item 3, under occupancy. And again, I still think that would follow the town code section 6-121, which says every room occupied for sleeping purposes shall contain at least 70 square feet of floor space for one occupant, or 40 square feet of floor space for each occupant if more than one. That just cleans that up a little bit. We didn't have the last part of that sentence in the draft, about 40 square feet. So essentially, if you had an 80 square foot bedroom, you could have 2 people in it. And the minimum for anybody sleeping in a room would be just like the rest of the town occupancy, 70 square feet. And the next item that I highlighted for you was draft item 4 about the off-street parking. The draft said, for each bedroom rented, you need a parking space. Well, just to simplify it, town code says for each dwelling, you need 2 parking spaces off-street parking. So if you had a 4-bedroom house, by town code, you need 2 parking spaces off-street. The way I propose it now, anything above that, if you're going to rent more than 2 bedrooms, so 3 bedrooms, you'd need 3 parking spaces. 4 bedrooms, you'd need, if you're renting all 4 bedrooms, you need 4. So anything above the 2 you're already required, you had a 4-bedroom house and you're renting all 4, you need 4 parking spaces off. Not 6, the way the original draft would have read. I said, if you need 4 above the town minimum, so that would have meant 6. This clears it up a little bit where if you're renting 4 bedrooms or 5 bedrooms, if you have a house that big, you would need parking space for each bedroom, not each occupant. And we also talked about violations. The draft item 8E, we could add the language that is in the section of the Berlin Code for the Berlin Board of Housing Review. That allows for the appeals process if a license is revoked or a apartment, as we are now, like if we shut it down for substandard conditions, the owner has a right to appeal, and we would just mirror that language. And so their appeal would be under the rules of the Board of Housing Review. A couple other considerations that weren't really draft items. You had requested clarification on the room occupancy tax. I consulted with the treasurer of Worcester County since then. All the short-term rentals in the county and other overnight lodging, including hotels, motels, that tax rate is set at 5% of the room rate. And we would work with the Worcester County treasurer to collect that. The county would retain 1%, and the town of Berlin would receive 4%. Mechanisms similar to what we get for property tax, real estate property tax. The county collects it, and then we get our portion of what they collect every year for our real estate taxes. So the procedure is similar. And I attached the draft ordinance as written. I did not change it yet until we had more discussion. I put minutes of the June 28th work session. And you had also asked for like the noise ordinance, I think I gave you that right after that 6/28 meeting, but I gave it to you again, the noise ordinance, and what else did I give you? I gave you another section, code section. I think just the noise ordinance. No, the occupancy is in there too. So we have, some of these we already have on the books that for enforcement, as far as noise or parking, you know, where you can and cannot park on the street in town. So this just would be another application of those same ordinance we have in place today.
Thank you for doing all that research for us and compiling it all. Does anybody have any questions or points of clarity that they would like to request from our planning and zoning director, Dave Engelhardt?
Yeah, right now I just have one. I believe we also mentioned a responsible party who is 30 minutes or less away.
Sure.
So I just want to bring that back up for consideration.
And I believe Council Member Orris had emailed out to us a question after this went out, after the packet went out. And we could certainly add that because we had 24, the draft ordinance already has an item that says you must have 24-hour contact information for the owner or a responsible owner's agent. And we could certainly say that resides or is available within a 30-minute travel time to the rental. We could certainly add that. That's easy to do.
And that's all right now until we do general discussion.
Thank you. We'll open it up to the council if anybody has any questions or comments for our planning and zoning director.
So I'm going back over this, I'm looking through, and I'm back on, these are the only
Can you use your
updates.
microphone?
These were the only updates and changes that were added to the draft that we saw previously, right? The ones we just discussed.
They're just recommendations. I
Right.
have not altered the draft at all.
Right. the
And
only
you have
one-
a copy of that, so that's the same as it was in June.
Right, I just wanted to double check
These are
that.
just more like recommendations or suggestions that were created by your discussion in June. Questions you had and things that people would like to see.
And I know that everyone's looking at, questioning, wondering about eligible zones and whatnot. Tell us where we are with that. I know where we were in June, but for those folks who are watching, who are sitting in company, can you tell us where we stand still on eligible zoning for short-term, or for this short-term rental?
I'm not sure what you mean by eligible zoning. This would be...
So, a lot of communication issues that are coming up, the question is, no, we would like to see the location that short-term renting can take place to be in. They want to know where exactly this is eligible, where they're allowed to have these short-term rentals, in R2s and R3s or R4s, what are we doing? That's what people are asking. I'm just looking for a little bit of clarity. We've not made any alterations, any alters there. So
We
that's
have not. So it's R1, R2, R3, R4. And in the business districts, B1, B2, B3, where there are dwelling units permitted. In other words, in those business districts, similar to downtown, let's use that Main Street as an
Right.
example. The way the code is written, you can have retail or service industry, restaurant, shop, whatever. First floor, you can only have dwelling units on the upper floors, second or third. So conceivably, a short-term rental could be done on the second or third floor, much like there are apartments now. In the R1 and the R2, which are both single-family residence districts, the way we had that ordinance written was you must be the primary, that must be your primary home under the State Department of Assessment and Taxation rules. So in other words, that was developed much as it's been in other communities, City of Baltimore, Nashville, we looked at, even in the county, that you couldn't go in and buy 6 houses on the same street and operate them all as short-term rentals. That was seen as a protective element for the single-family districts, and also for someone who might own a home and use 1 or 2 bedrooms of it to supplement their income, let's say. And they wanted the ability to do so in the future. They could license it while they're still living there and still help pay their mortgage or help pay their real estate taxes. There's also people that we know have their primary residence in town, but maybe they go to Florida for, the winter. They're gone 3-4 months. We have a lot of that on the shore. People live offshore for a few months, and then come back in the warmer weather. So that would allow for that, if that's the designation of that home with SDAT, with the assessment, with the state and taxation. So that's still the case.
Just making sure. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Dave, I have a question under Section E, violations. The proposed ordinance states a violation of any of the requirements of this section. Are you talking about the entire ordinance, or are you talking, what exactly are you talking about?
Well, like most of our code in town, it will say that any violation of this chapter is subject to a violation of, civil violation of $100. And any continuing violations will result in a fine of $200. And that's just copied of what we already have in our town code.
So that would reference the noise ordinance?
Yes.
Noise ordinance would reference itself.
Correct.
So you wouldn't have it under this, it would actually fall under the noise ordinance.
Now, under the noise ordinance, the fines are less than this.
That is correct, so it would fall under the noise ordinance.
Okay. But if they had 3 violations for noise per se, their license could be in jeopardy.
Yes.
Correct. Should that be, you have, may result in, the revocation of their license. Should that be strengthened to say will?
Well, what happens is the noise violation is on the individual who is actually there making the noise. So you're at home, you're making the noise, you get the violation.
Right.
Tomorrow, your daughter's there making the noise, she gets the violation. So again, you can't go ahead and penalize someone else for making noise of someone else when you look at the noise ordinance.
I'm talking about the person that owns the unit. How would their license be in jeopardy at some point?
That's a licensing issue. But again, when you're talking about the noise ordinance, they wouldn't fall under that.
I guess
So-
I want to fully understand under what circumstances that their license could be revoked
Or no?
for noise, for any trash, whatever the case.
That's a good observation, and I would say we could alter this to say
It has to.
a violation of any of the requirements of this section or of any Town of Berlin code section.
There you go.
And then you've covered that noise ordinance violation or trash violation or parking violation. You could add that wording to it.
Okay, and let's say we do that, and then could you change instead of may result, shall result? Or will result? In other words, 3 strikes and you're out.
But
Well,
I think,
it doesn't say that
I know it doesn't say that.
that there's 3 strikes and you're
I'm
out.
saying, should it? Because
But I don't know where
now
the
it's,
3
now
strikes is coming from. Where's that coming from?
it's not in here. It's saying it may result.
I think with the utmost respect on this for a second, I would not want to pigeonhole myself and say 3 strikes using that analogy for a second. Because you could have one violation that is just off the Richter scale, very severe, and that decision may be made at that point to revoke that license based off one.
Right, but you also want owners to be accountable for these issues. You don't want them to go on and on and on and on. Right now, according to this, they can. I mean, it's up to the planning director to make a judgment call.
So what I'm hearing is that we need to have a little bit more language in section E. One, making the violations, even if they are noise driven to an individual, run with the property.
Yes.
And also trying to vet out what that violation schedule would look like, so that there is a pathway that people understand, hey, look, this is what I can expect to lose my license. And then we also, to the town administrator's point, probably need to put in a catastrophic clause if something bad really happens.
Yeah.
What process do we follow?
Yeah.
All right.
The other thing I wanted to ask you, under the section where you're talking about the occupancy for every 70 square feet, one occupant, rather than worry about measuring square footage, why not just do it 2 occupants per bedroom? Simplify it.
Because then you get a walk-in closet becomes a bedroom in smaller units. The whole idea of having 70 square feet for any occupancy is so that there's room for, and a lot of times it has to do with egress. You know, if there's a fire or smoke and people can't get out, you know, you've got to have a certain size bedroom. That's your definition, and that's how we define a bedroom in the town code already, 70 square feet. Which isn't a large room if you think about it. It's, you know, 9 by 8 is 72 square feet. You know, a lot of times if you see bedrooms in a small ranch house, some of them are 10 by 11, and you look at them with a double bed in it, you say, wow, that's a tiny bedroom. So I think 70 really is the minimum, and it is also the county's minimum, 70 square feet also.
I think you're trying to get to the number of occupants for that bedroom, regardless of the square footage. So could we add for sleeping purposes shall contain at least 70 square foot of floor space and no more than 2 occupants per bedroom or something like that?
Well, you surely could, but I would think that for larger bedrooms, if you think of even the resort area, places maybe some of us have stayed in before, you have 2 children maybe in bunk beds, and you have their parents staying in the same room in a double bed, and it's a large bedroom. But you could limit it to 2 people per bedroom. You certainly could. I didn't go that far. I thought that was a little restrictive.
So currently now in town of Berlin, we have short-term rentals going on now.
Yes, sir.
And this is our attempt to standardize and bring that under some type of control.
And compliance, yeah.
And
Safety.
compliance.
Safety. Carolyn Duffy and I in my office, we've gotten calls, 1 or 2 a month, and they're usually not, well, they haven't been in town, the locations. They've been other places in the county, because they assume it's a Berlin address, so it might be Ocean Pines, or it could be, you know, close to West Ocean City. And one I got from a woman who had just finished a rental, and the house had a 2nd floor where the bedrooms were, and it had the hallway was actually open below to the great room, and it had railings up top. But code says you got to have them 4 inches on center, and she said she knows it was a lot wider than that because she had a toddler and a 4-year-old, and she had to be with them every minute because if they went upstairs, they were going to go right through and hit that 1st floor from the 2nd floor. So she wanted to register a complaint. And then one of the others was the same situation out on the deck off the house on the upper floor. So, but I had to tell her, I said, it's not, I gave her the number and who to call with the county. I said, but it's not our purview there to enforce that. So that's the kind of thing we need to, if we're gonna allow the use, we need to be able to see the units, just like we would if you were remodeling a house or building a new house, so that for fire safety and just for building code safety, there's a lot of items. And one of the big ones is the fire safety. You know, you're supposed to have a fire alarm that's not battery hooked up, it's live wire hooked up outside every bedroom door in a dwelling, every bedroom. And also, I don't know, depending on the heat, you want carbon monoxide detectors, you want that type of thing. Egress windows. Some of the older places don't have windows that meet egress, where you could get out if there was a fire. And now if we're talking about rentals, you know, you or I in our own home, if there was a fire, I'd know how to get out of my house, okay, and so would you. But if you're strange to the house and it's 2 in the morning and you just woke up after 3 hours of sleeping, maybe you don't. And those egress windows, they're not just for you to get out, they're for the firemen to get in. That's always one of the bigger considerations. We already have in our code, you can't have a basement apartment in town and that's been on the books forever, if you don't have large enough windows to get out. You know, so they don't want anyone trapped in a basement when the upper floor is on fire. And so, you know, we don't have, not that we have a basement in every dwelling in a house in town anyway, but that's been on the books since 1977 when they put the code in place.
So do you have, I don't want to step on you.
Me?
No.
Oh, Councilmember Burrell?
If you've got a question, go ahead.
Well, mine's kind of like 3 parts, so go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, it kind of ties in, again, goes around to, I had asked in our June meeting, initially if this were to go through with permitting and, or excuse me, with licensing and whatnot, what kind of effect that would have on you and your staff. Do you still feel that, like I think what you said was initially would be a bit of a bump, but then it would smooth out? You still feel the same?
I think so.
Okay.
So it's not like I've seen a proliferation in it. There's a few more out there than there were in June now, but we're not getting overrun with units.
So how do you envision handling the enforcement that you just described?
It's always complaint driven. I would have to receive complaints from neighbors or feedback from Chief Downing's department. This happened Saturday night, you know, when I'm not here, I'm home in bed. So, you know, 2 a.m. Sunday morning this happened. And, you know, feedback from my department to his and his to mine, we already do quite a lot of that, so, on enforcement issues. His officers come in our office quite a bit, and then, a lot of times it has to do with untagged or abandoned vehicles, because if it's on the property, it's my enforcement. If it's on the street, it's his enforcement. So we usually have to cooperate on those things, but he'll run tags for us to find the owner, and if it's on the street and we have a complaint from a property owner on the same street, then I can tell him and his officers to go out and investigate that vehicle there. So we already cooperate quite a bit.
Thank you. And then that also kind of flows into the Board of Housing review. One of the concerns that I'm hearing from folks is that they don't really want to be put in a position where they're pitting neighbor against neighbor. So I'm not sure how, if we're going to put the appeals process under the Board of Housing review, if we're going to get a lot of folks to volunteer to do that. So is there another mechanism to handle that?
The one caveat I would say is that we have other regulatory boards and commissions that already exist. Currently, if your home was in disrepair or something, you would also go to the Housing Board of Review, which is why it's been inserted in this as well. I see your point, but I think that we have boards that already function in that capacity. So it's important for the people to understand that as they apply for those positions, that that's part of the job. We try to do a pretty good job of explaining the roles and responsibilities with every board and commission, but we'll make sure that we highlight that as well. Also, to your first point, I think that the impact will be felt on planning and zoning, but we also are probably going to have some impacts on finance as well. So, Finance Director Sylvie, would you mind saying whether or not there would be a huge impact on the collection side of things within your department?
It's too early to tell that. There is nothing in place as of right now.
I mean, similar to like business licensing fees, I would envision something similar to that in
To
this.
have 100% collection, we have to have teeth in place. If we don't have enforcement, then we have a poor collection.
And
So-
it's complaint driven at this point, yeah.
No, so I think where our finance director is going is that business licensing fees, the council adopted a while ago, a late payment structure that may need to be added to this as well for the licensing.
And some of the things, for general discussion, some of the things that I'm hearing from folks as well is kind of like this leads into a revisiting of the entire zoning. Some folks that I've talked to feel this should be just in the B1, 2s, and 3s. Other people have reached out and said not at all. So it's just, it's a topic on folks' minds, and that's just some of the things that I'm hearing right now.
And that kind of leads, honestly, when I saw this on the agenda for the evening, I figured it was going to be a discussion of mainly the public. I certainly have my feelings on it, but I'm still wanting to hear something from the public. So it's really what I thought tonight was going to be more of a discussion.
Yeah, I'd definitely like to hear the folks that are here.
And anybody that's in attendance is welcome to speak. But what we also wanted to do before we opened it up for like a large public comment period was follow up on some of the questions that were still lingering from the work session. That is definitely something that we still want to do. But anybody that's here in attendance this evening that wishes to say something, feel free.
I'm sorry.
The one thing I would ask is that if once you're recognized, just come up front. We do need your first and last name and property address for the record.
Did you all see the letter from Laura Stern?
Yes.
Okay. She wanted me to make sure that you guys had seen that.
And we can add that also to the record for the minutes.
She asked that.
Yeah, she has to be read. I thought you were about to read it.
She
Do
did
you
ask
mind?
us to be read.
I don't mind at all.
Mind reading? And then we'll add it also physically to the meeting minutes.
The letter itself is dated September 27, 2021, Mayor and Town Council. My name is Laura Stearns. I'm a 15-year resident of the Town of Berlin. I'm a member of the Town of Berlin's Historic Commission as well as a member of the Town of Berlin's Parks Commission. My home is in the Historic District and my husband and I also own several other properties within the town. I'm the general manager of the Atlantic Hotel and I have a vested interest in this town. I am unable to attend tonight's meeting but would like to express my opinion on the short-term rentals within the town. My opinion may not be popular as I have friends and neighbors who own short-term rentals. But one thing that I've learned as a manager is that you can't be afraid to say what you think. We moved here from Ocean City where we lived next door to seasonal rentals for many years. I won't go into detail, but I'm sure you can imagine what it was like. We moved here because this town was quiet and peaceful, close to the beaches but far enough away from the glow of Ocean City. We have enjoyed the peaceful small town atmosphere that drew us here to begin with, and we're lucky enough to raise our children here. Over the course of the years, as Berlin has become so cool, a little bit of a sleepy town that it once was has been chipped away. It seems the cooler this town becomes, the less peaceful. I wouldn't want to live next door to a property that has been rented out to people who are in town to party. I don't want people walking to the farmer's market on Sunday to see a porch or lawn that is showing the aftermath of a party from the night prior. I don't want to hear late night laughter, screaming and yelling, and with each week comes a new tenant ready to do it all over again. Truthfully, I wasn't expecting an Airbnb to be much of a problem until it was. I saw a party where a liquor tent was left overnight, fully stocked for anyone who happened by. What if underage kids had seen what I had saw? Isn't this a liability? The Coastal Association of Realtors has set mass mailings supporting Airbnbs. This is because they are in it to make money. This should be a red flag to all residents. The Coastal Association of Realtors are not thinking of the residents of the town who have to live next door to these businesses. They are not interested in the quality of life of Berlin residents. Airbnbs are businesses. These businesses don't belong in the residential areas. Respectfully, Laura Stearns.
Thank you. With that being said, anybody in attendance this evening that would like to address the mayor and council in reference to short-term rentals?
Mayor, if I may, I just did want to make the point that, of course, you can open it for public discussion, but people do need to recognize this is not a public hearing.
Correct.
We're not at that point yet.
Correct. Thank you for the clarity. And this, like the deputy town administrator said, this is not a public hearing, just giving anybody that's in attendance the opportunity to say what's on their mind if that's something they would like to do. Okay. Any further questions?
Marie?
Okay, all right. One at a time, come up, name, Marie, you can start. Name and property address, and then you may speak.
Marie V. Long, 400 West Street. It's not much. I just have to agree with Jack on depending on complaint-driven neighbors stuff. To me, it's causing bad feelings in the neighborhood. And just like you don't want to hear from me all the time complaining, that's what's going to happen in those neighborhoods to the people that complain. You're going to have them discounted after a point. Who makes the qualification that it's complaint worthy? I mean, there's a lot there that you're putting on the citizens to determine. It seems to me this is more some type of building inspector type purview, rather than just people, your neighbors. If you have a conflict with your neighbor and continually complain about them, is that going to be, it's too complicated for the neighborhood. And I think you should really consider that, because you create bad feelings amongst people.
I'd like to make a statement on that. Number one, if you don't go ahead and speak out, you won't be heard. We're talking about visitors, not your neighbors. So when you're actually talking about somebody saying it's a loud party or this, you can do it anonymous. Remember that. It is a lot better to go ahead and say what you think you see than not say anything. On the other side, it is dual fault. We're talking about the size of rooms and this. That's the start. So that means to go ahead and be registered. That's one caveat. Someone comes in, inspects it, makes sure that everything is proper and fits the code. The other part is way over here, and we're talking about violations of other things on the property and negligent property owners. We have to also understand, we can talk about violations, we can talk about 3 violations. We are not the trier of fact. The judge will go ahead and hear the civil complaint. And if he goes and said not guilty, if you revoke something from someone, you're going to have a hard time moving forward. So make sure that the laws actually are within the bounds of legality. Not what we want. Let's go ahead and find out what's legal first and then move forward. If we go ahead and say, well, we want to go ahead and make it to If you have a footnote of what the law is and what it is in the town, you don't want to deviate from that. So, again, she's right on mark about, people knowing what's going on inside of a home and trying to figure those things out, or too many people. But on the other side, the only way we're going to know is the neighbors to say something.
So with that being said, let's use this as an opportunity. What are the anonymous reporting mechanisms for the police department and then for planning and zoning? Just in summary, so that people that are watching understand what they are.
Is exactly what you said. Again, as much information you can go ahead and give without giving your name. You don't have to say your address. You don't have to give any information whatsoever. We know we have caller ID and those sort of things. But again, we're not writing any of that down on any documents. So 3 days later, we won't come back and be able to reference it. We will ask, do you want to go ahead and be contacted by the police? And if the answer is no, it's no.
So with that being said, the number for the police department is 410-641-1333.
That is correct.
And planning and zoning, I'm sorry, I don't know your number off the top of my head, but I assume that the reporting process, as far as anonymous, is similar to the police department.
Most people we get, that, it could be anything. It could be my neighbor's grass is too tall. They ask to be anonymous. And that's typical. That's 80 to 90% of our callers will tell us that. I don't want my name in it. It doesn't have to be. Thank you. And I always thank them for their vigilance. We can't be everywhere every day. So.
And things being timely really moves right in that vein. If you say they're making loud noise right now, we drive around, park the car, and we hear it. So again, you can't go ahead and make the complaint 3 days later and think that we're going to go ahead and have a good investigation, or that we're going to be able to go ahead and see violations. It just won't happen if you go ahead and say, I'm going to go ahead and call Jack and say, Jack, I think they did this, this, and this. If Jack gets the phone call, Jack has to go ahead and call the police department right then and there. If you hold on to it, we're not going to go ahead and not be able to do our job in the proper way.
To the chief's point, just to share with the council, I mean, I think the classic on this is this morning at ODark 30, all the way down on the end of South Main Street, I had a citizen walk up to me and said, we had an issue at such and such address with all this noise. And I listened and I said, what did you do about it? Well, I'm telling you now. When did it happen? Friday night. Why didn't you call the police?
We work 24 hours. You don't bother us.
I think we really are going to have trouble anyway with that. There's a lot of people, look at who's here. There's a lot of people that just do not get involved, and that's what I'm looking at. This is all well and good. You can make all the laws you want, but if you don't have someone watching it, then they're just pointless. And that's what I see in this. You don't have a decibel reading on the noise. That's something that I think Ocean City does.
But they don't do too much of that right now.
I'm just saying, it just seems to me that the whole thing is opening up a humongous bag of worms, and it's hard on neighbors, regardless of what you're saying about anonymous and all.
Thank you, Maria. I believe we had another hand. Mr. Cassio. Name and property address, please.
Ron Cassio, 343 Walnut Hill Drive. I read and heard previously of a provision where the property must be occupied by the property owner. Where do we stand with that right now?
That's in R1 and R2.
And currently within the draft, that's not been adjusted yet. So the requirement is still owner occupied for residential properties, and for the business district, I think that can be non-owner occupied.
Okay.
It doesn't, Ron, I'll clarify a little bit. Doesn't mean the owner has to be there when the rental's going on. Has to be their primary residence as they register it with State Department of Assessment and Taxation. Doesn't mean you couldn't be in Europe Doesn't mean you couldn't be in Florida, but that has to be your home base when you are in Berlin, Maryland.
I tend to agree with Laura Stern in her views of this. I have friends, long-term residents in the town of Lewis, Delaware, and those poor folks are moving out in droves simply because of short-term rentals. I've seen things in town here. I generally exercise early in the morning before the sun comes up, sometimes as early as 4 o'clock in the morning. And when I ride my bike or walk down South Main Street, there's a Airbnb or whatever you want to call it there. 4 in the morning, a couple of hundred string lights are still up in the backyard. Noise coming from the house. TV on, I can see it from Main Street. I understand that there's a lot of alcohol consumed there. I have no problem with people consuming alcohol. But this seems to me more like a bar than a residential use. I believe that this is not a residential use. This is a money-making activity where, particularly if the property owner is not involved there, well, I think the property owner needs to be there. I don't think that we should involve them. Well, I called the chief. In Walnut Hill, when we made our covenants and restrictions, we saw this. We didn't see it as bad as it is now, but we're restricted short-term rentals. The only way you can rent your house there is to have a year lease or more. The board must have a copy of that lease so we know what's going on. One summer or 1 year, a renter sublet her house to her sister. And what we saw was every weekend, 6 cars, noise, late at night, little kids running around in the street. I watched them almost get hit. No supervision. That was just one house. I know that in our neighborhood, we moved here because it's a community of residents. I know in our neighborhood, if someone was renting a room in their house and there was any problems going on, the neighbors I know would have no problem going to that neighbor either that night or the morning after and self-policing it. You know, when we start getting the chief, other departments involved, that's taking up our time. That's taking up the town's time. That's a business as far as I'm concerned. I truly believe that we need to have the property owner on premise, self-policing that way. I know in a lot of jurisdictions where rentals both in and in secondary structures are allowed, you have to have the property owner on board in the resident, in anywhere on the property. That's a self-policing mechanism that I know and the people that I know would have no problem confronting their neighbor and saying, look, we've had enough of this stuff. And then maybe we get the chief involved or the zoning committee or Dave. But this is a business in a residential community. I've seen the problems, they've just begun. And I truly think we have to nip this in the bud before it just becomes a proliferation of this stuff. I see it. I know people are buying up houses with that intent. And it needs to stop before it starts. I think one of the problems is that, I don't know anybody that would really rent a room out in their house. But I think it's time to consider updating the zoning code to become more realistic with today's demographics as far as living space goes. Presently in town, you're unable to have a living space in a secondary structure. I know there are some properties that are grandfathered that have those. I know of no problems with those because it's self-policing. The property owner lives in either the primary or the secondary living structure, and their neighbors would be on them if there was a problem. I think it's time to revisit the zoning code and see if we could have a situation where we could have a living space in the secondary structure. It would, if the argument is I need to make more money to pay my mortgage or to pay the town taxes, well then, there you go. You don't have to rent out a room in your house. It would be good for town. More people would be close to the town center to support local businesses. There's already off-street, there have to be off-street parking. I see no problem with that, and I think the good part of it is that the property owner is in residence on the property to self-police it before we go to the chief or Dave to solve the problems that are already happening in this town and we see happening in other towns in or near resort areas. So I hope you would consider opening the discussion up to more practical ways to give people a way to have guests on their property. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ron.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that's in attendance this evening that would like to comment on the, yes, Mr. Hammond, come forward, name, property address, please.
I won't take up too much of your time on this agenda item at least, but I'm Ed Hammond, I live on South Main Street. With respect to the proposed ordinance, I think it's great. I think it's a really good idea, and I think the town's headed in the right direction with it. And, you know, if there is a public hearing eventually, I may come in and say more, but I would be happy if you adopted it more or less as it is right now with minor tweaks. You know, I live part of the year here in Berlin. I'm one of those that Dave mentioned before, and part of the year in Texas. My neighborhood in Texas has been ripped apart by non-owner occupied Airbnbs. And the city realized very quickly when they started to permit them that it was a terrible mistake. It encouraged land speculation, rising prices for everyone, loss of housing units for people that were in the community. And you think in Berlin, you know, I know people, I know young families that want to live in Berlin and they can't live in Berlin because there's not enough housing. And if you give over good residential to this sort of use and you're destroying the fabric of your community. I think of Burley Street when I was a kid. I knew everybody who lived on Burley Street. I knew all their names and everybody there. You look at Burley Street now, and it's kind of neat because it's kind of like the way it was when I was a kid. There is a community of young families down there that are, you know, bringing up their kids, and it's really working. But very many more houses on that street, you know, flipped to being owner-occupied Airbnbs, and you're going to really change the fabric. So for those reasons, and I could name many more, I think that this is really the right thing to do. I think that, I guess, my second point is completely popped out of my head on this, but I'll remember it if you have a hearing. In any event, I would encourage you to really do this, and I don't. I think. Oh, excuse me. I did remember my second point. That's why I was stuttering for a minute. My second point would be that as I read the ordinance, and I may be wrong here, but as I read the ordinance, in effect, short-term rental units in business districts, and maybe also in the densest residential district. I'm not sure if I understood it correctly. Would be essentially unregulated in terms of, you know, under the ordinance, in terms of anybody could do one anywhere in that zoning.
They would be permitted.
Yeah, my suggestion would be is that you might think about that a little bit, because if particularly if you had a situation in which there were if this ordinance were adopted, and you might start driving short-term rentals towards that type of use. you could reach a situation where you would have such a potentially high proportion of that type of residence, so apartment buildings and, apartments over, a second floor in Main Street, where you may start to have a problem. And so my only suggestion in terms of strengthening the proposed ordinance would be to maybe look at that and to say, well, we would tolerate up to X percent of the residential units that are in this business zoning to be short-term rentals. But if it reaches that threshold, then we're going to need to have a lottery or some sort of system to ensure that you don't suddenly have, half the apartments in downtown Berlin not occupied by people that live there. I think that wouldn't be a very good thing. Maybe that's not a concern right now. But if we're doing an ordinance on it, maybe that's something to consider. So,
Mr. Hammond, I have a question for you. What are your thoughts pertaining to what Mr. Cassio said about allowing accessory buildings on your property as long as the owner lives in the main structure or one of the structures?
Yeah, I'll be straight up with you. That's permitted where I live in Texas, and I have one. And so I'm not against Airbnb. It has helped me send my daughter to private college, and I do it. So I would, with the caveat that I haven't studied this carefully and thought about it really carefully, in principle, I would support densification in Berlin a bit, and I believe that they are self-regulating, as he said. We do this, first of all, particularly if it's the auxiliary unit that is typically smaller, that is permitted. Like, for example, in my neighborhood and in my own particular case in Texas, the ADUs can't be more than 750 square feet. Mine's only like about 300 square feet. So we're there, but if you have a smaller unit like that, you don't get parties. You don't get, we have one bed and 250 square feet. So we've never had a problem with people that, with sort of behavior that everybody's concerned about. So, and then translating that to the context of Berlin, I would agree, and I think that it's worth exploring. But as I understand that would involve a bigger question related to zoning. But in principle, I wouldn't. That's not something that I would immediately reject as an idea. I think it's worth exploring. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Name and property address, please.
Anne-Marie Pollock, Polleck, 102 Nancy Avenue, Berlin.
Thank you.
I don't public speak, I despise public
You're doing
speaking.
just fine.
That's
Go ahead.
That's strong. But anyway, after the last two, I couldn't sit still, I'm sorry. And some of you, Jack and Troy, know what's coming out of this mouth. As far as having a separate dwelling or a second dwelling on a property where it's not zoned causes so much issues. There's no one watching it. It needs to be licensed. It needs to be followed up. My neighbor did something very similar, and I have lost a friend as a neighbor because I did call and complain, but I just had to. My neighbors used a bathroom in the garage as their bathroom and slept in a bus that they were there in the process of converting into a trailer, or they wanted to be a trailer. So this bus and this garage is maybe 6-7 feet from my property line. So where I used to just see the back of a garage, now I see the back of a garage, lattice work, about a 4-foot spacing, and this bus. And there's lights all over the bus, and they constantly run back and forth because there's a husband and a wife and a 14-year-old and a 12-year-old living in a bus. So it's not what a neighborhood should be. And I did speak up because I was frustrated and I was done, and I got help from my councilman. But I have other neighbors who don't say anything. I have, my other neighbors right that share driveway with these people are 82 years old. They are frightened now. They've got strangers coming every weekend that is literally 20 feet from them. They don't use their patio anymore. They go over to the other side. I mean, we have our neighborhood, there's 3 single women. My husband travels Monday through Thursday, so I'm by myself also. And just having people that you don't know checking in every weekend right in your backyard is not what a neighborhood is to me. That's all.
Thank you for
Could I
that.
just ask you, ma'am, could I ask you, the town administrator and I met with the owner of the property you're discussing here with the bus. Has that continued after Labor Day weekend?
No, sir, it stopped.
Because that was what, they said they had a booking,
Correct.
and that was the discussion we had with her. And I just wanted to confirm that it had ceased, because it's hard for us when we're here weekdays to monitor it. We go by there, we've been going by there, but if it's a weekend rental,
It has
checked
stopped.
in late Friday, okay, good.
It
That's
has
what I wanted to
stopped.
know. So,
No, yes, it
so they're
has.
in compliance right now,
Currently, they are.
and they're not living in the bus, correct?
Not currently, no,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, and you did a great job with the public speaking. Yes, Ron?
Just to clarify, Dave.
Just so that everybody that can't see you that's talking, Ron Cassio.
Dave, with the situation that the young lady described, would that mean in any way the qualifications that are put forth in the present discussion? I mean, you wouldn't be renting, that wouldn't be allowed, would it?
No.
Okay, so.
Because you
that's
couldn't have a
the way-
second dwelling unit on a property in that
But
zone.
that is, from what she described, it seems like in no way would meet any of the intents of what is on the table, correct?
It would not.
Okay. Thank you.
What you're thinking?
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes.
I'm sorry, but if you open it up and you tell people that they can have residents in a second dwelling, who at that point is going to police and watch all this? Or is it still going to have to be neighbors snitching on neighbors?
They have to go get a license, they have to go through the process that's under discussion.
Currently,
And if they don't, then they're gonna shut it down.
Current town code, regardless of rental ordinance or not, does not allow a second dwelling unit in a residential area. You get one house. You can't have the garage changed into an apartment and rent it out. You can't do that. And this is kind of what Mr. Cassio is referring to, and he wants maybe an accessory dwelling amendment or a change to our zoning that could allow that.
And we go through any inspections that we're
Of
talking
course,
about now.
of course.
Exactly.
It has to still be
To be licensed.
inspected for building, inspected for fire, inspected for plumbing and electrical, and, building code inspections, and get a certificate of occupancy.
And the situation he's describing would in no way meet those circumstances.
And that's not really in this particular discussion, but a good pathway for that would be, and I know you're on the planning commission as well, I think a good pathway would be to start that dialogue at the planning commission level.
I would be happy to start that.
And begin exploring those things, and then it can always come to the mayor and council in the form of a recommendation.
I'd be happy to hear the townspeople's comments and concerns.
Anybody else this evening that would like to discuss anything that's on your mind related to agenda item number 2? All right, let's move on to agenda item number 3. Or any further questions or points of consideration from the council that we need to have explored before we come together on a public hearing? Okay, if anything comes to mind, pass that our direction and we'll make sure it gets over to where it needs to be. Agenda item number 3 is the discussion in reference to downtown tree lighting, and our electric utility director, Tim Lawrence, is going to run point.
First thing I'd like to do is clarify some things that were mentioned during the last council meeting concerning the downtown lights for the trees and the upward lights, the new accent lights. I mentioned that the lights in the trees, that sometimes we have to go in there and repair them and splice them and put them back together. I just want everybody to know that it is done in a very safe manner. It's not something where you just twist the wires together and throw tape over it. These devices, which are the receptacles, which are just like a plug in your house for a light or something like that, are actually provided by the manufacturer. And what we do is if the wire breaks, you just put it inside this, close it up, and then it becomes a plug again. So it's very safe what we're doing. We're not putting anybody in harm's way or anything like that. What I wanted to mention about the lights was, well, they just, we've already went out and ordered the new lights, which I brought some with me. These are just like the ones we had before in the trees. They're identical, same ones. We've already ordered all the lights and everything, so we're prepared to start putting them back in the trees.
However, what's going on, so you understand why it's not happening, what Tim and his crew are doing is all the trees, the lights they're actually trimming those trees, so that's got to be completed before we start the install.
That's correct.
Tim, I'm sorry, but can I just ask, does that, I think it does, but does that tone or whatever match the streetlights?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's LED. Yeah. It's called Cool White is the name of it, and it does match the downtown lighting, which it's always been that way. It's the same lights that we had prior. And like Jeff mentioned, the crews are actually in there trimming all the trees before we go to put the lights in, and then that way hopefully we don't have to come back and trim them for another 3 or 4 years on
So
that.
are we going around the base of the trees as well? Like before, or are we just going into the?
Well, we're going to try to go around the base of the trees because what we're doing with this one is we're changing it from feeding it overhead to underground. So that way we'll be able to wrap the trunks as we're going up and then it'll spread out through the trees.
Got it.
So we're actually, I met with the contractor last week, went over it with him about how we could underground it, because some of it's going to require a little bit of directional boring, because it's got to go under, like some of that brickwork downtown, for example. I'd rather try to stay away from trying to tear that brickwork up to put it in underground, so we may have to do some boring for that section of it. But right now, we're trimming the trees, and then the next step will be to start putting lights in the underground, that type of thing.
And the other question that was asked was a budgetary impact. Excuse, thank you, Mary. We budgeted $10,000 for this at the beginning of the fiscal year. That projected price to do this is going to fall below the $10,000 mark.
That's correct.
How much were the uplights that we already purchased?
The ones that we purchased were like $1,200. Yeah.
And then
this, go ahead.
Sorry, Mr. Ray. Does this, you had indicated last time that you'd like to include the trees on west. Does this include that?
That's, well.
This price right here does not include the trees on West Street, but if we do those trees on West Street, the estimated cost is?
We're probably looking at about $2,500.
But this also does not include, just for full scope of what that $10,000 is, the $4,861 does not include the underlying infrastructure, correct? The
Yeah.
boring and the things of that nature?
Yes, it does.
It does?
Yes.
Cover the boring?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, see, I was, okay.
Yep.
All right.
That should cover most of the big part of it, but some of the smaller directional part of it we can do ourselves as the electric department. Now there's a couple of areas where that'll actually have to be done by a contractor.
Can I just only ask for clarification? I mean, I'm sure they'll look great, so.
They will.
Yeah.
We can use your help for school field to screw light bulbs.
Yeah, I'll go up there and screw some.
Any other, and this was just a briefing item, it's no action needed, but any questions for our electric utility director, Tim Warren? All right. Up next on the agenda is motion 2021-24, moved it on in too quickly. Motion approving a request for funding for repairs at 105 Washington Street, and future requests for proposal. And our Water Resources Director, Jamie Latcham, is running point.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor and Council. The stormwater pipe that runs from 105, in the yard of 105 Washington Street has failed. There's quite a few sinkholes coming, and we videoed it, and we can't get the camera down it. So I'm asking to do a study of the downstream and everything to make sure that everything can handle it, and we can go out for an RFP for getting it replaced. It has been affecting the homeowners there because in their driveway, and they can't fix their driveway because there's sinkholes in their driveway and around their sheds and stuff.
And if I could add a little bit to this.
Okay.
The actual motion, I'm going to change the verbiage on that. The motion would read, approving a request for funding for replacement repair of the town stormwater piping that is located physically on 105 Washington Street, and the funding of a downstream modeling. When you take a look at the packet, Mary, can you bring up that picture? If you take a look at that, Darrell, you tell me where I'm wrong. Originally, or I shouldn't say originally, haphazardly would be a better choice of words. We projected to replace that terracotta pipe, that 18-inch pipe, with a 24-inch pipe. But I've been now informed by EA Engineering that the 18-inch pipe that's there, that dimension of pipe would suffice. Is that correct?
You can replace it in kind with the 18-inch, correct?
Okay.
What's the difference between, Mr. Hammond, one moment if you don't mind. What's the difference between the additional sizing versus the 18-inch?
You're going to get more flow, and that needs modeled in both, and that has to be done in a way where you go down at least to the next structure, at least to the structure at Main, ideally going further, to model that what that flow does in the stream bed to make sure it does not create any additional flooding.
Now, that will also be done and evaluated with the 18-inch pipe as well?
I don't think we need to model that 18-inch volume as long as if we're replacing a very similar pipe and the difference in flow for an 18-inch plastic pipe versus an 18-inch terracotta that's there now is going to be very nominal. But we still have to calculate that flow, and we have to get approval from Maryland Department of Environment regardless, because this outlets into Bottle Branch. So we have to put an application into Maryland Department of Environment. And when they come back with our application, that's when we typically find out what they want to see. They may say model it down to the first structure. They may say you're replacing the same diameter pipe. Let me see your flow counts, and that can be acceptable. Regardless, they will tell us at a minimum what we have to do. If we can model further, yes, we can. It absolutely has to be evaluated and calculated and impacts downstream.
Thank you.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but we don't have a flooding problem on Washington, correct?
I don't believe we do.
So really, why would you need to go to a larger pipe? What would be well, you said greater flow, but why would you need to?
Well, we did a very cursory calculation, and it looks like that 18-inch is undersized for a standard repair design of a 10-year home. With that said, it's very close to the outfall at Bottle Branch. So it's a short distance for that to get relief. Meaning, if that was way inside town that was undersized, you would go back at the system and cause flooding on the street. Right. This gets really pretty quick to Bottle Branch, so I think that's why we're not seeing flooding in that area. So yeah, you can replace it in that kind, knowing that we don't have flooding in that area.
But if we are considering a 24-inch,
We still have calculate that.
You still have to calculate that to determine its effect on the system. Because a 24-inch could cause problems downstream.
24-inch absolutely will take more flow.
Yeah, more
You will
flow.
go, yeah, you will get more CFS through a bigger pipe. And what that does is that impacts the water surface elevation and olive branch. That has to be modeled to see how far that impact goes. And it can't, usually it's the next constriction, which is the next main street. So you have to see what impacts that water elevation does it do. Does it have capacity? It's an involved evaluation. It's called HEC-RAS modeling. It's a polished model that university or the Corps of Engineers prepared, and it's a model that MBE and the Corps and all that rely on. And it's you have to be trained in HEC-RAS modeling to do it. So it's a respected model. We have to do it. Take it downstream.
So I know we have issues with the Bottle Branch drainage system, but where this pipe would outfall into Bottle Branch, generally does that area back up there, or is it further downstream?
It gets pretty thin. Yeah.
It does get back.
Well, I mean, we're so you're right behind Buckingham,
Right.
so that goes from west to main.
Right.
That could back up. I mean, it backs up all the way to west of the Navy.
Backs up to west and then causes those issues.
Yeah. And then that's another thing. So a lot of times, knowing that, MD will say, okay, you got to model back up because if it's going to affect us in the other direction, you got to go sometimes 1,000 feet in each direction. I mean, that's what we would have to do. This is, as Jeff said, the more important is to replace the failing pipe in this area, and 18-inch, you can do that. But when we're looking at replacing pipes and evaluating, this is what we want to do that when we have the opportunity.
So, Darrell, I just have a couple questions as well. How long generally does this application take with environment?
It depends. If we go and recommend replace an 18-inch pipe with an 18-inch pipe, they recognize that as a more maintenance approach, and it can be very quick. And they say, okay, show us, your downstream conditions, and show us a calculation of existing flow, and when you this new pipe, because you'll have different coefficient of friction, calculate that. It'll be very straightforward. If we show an increase in size of flow, it'll be a little bit. It's most likely a couple iterations with them. It could take the first review 30 days. Another review could be another 30 days with the MPE. If you're replacing time, it's much bigger. Anticipate to be much bigger.
So I guess this might be a silly question, but if this is an 18-inch pipe now and it's failing, if we replace with an 18-inch pipe, doesn't that mean flow is going to increase anyway?
Well, the failure is it's the age of the pipe is terracotta, and it's just what's that? It's fragile. It's terracotta, it's clay, and as well as the town repaired, not with terracotta, but with a section of plastic pipe. So in the repair, when you go for different pipe materials, which is very fair, and it's just it's an old pipe, and it's not uncommon for terracotta pipe that we see these failures.
Thanks.
Yes, Mr. Hammond?
All right. A lot of things to say. I mean, first of all, I'm the recipient of this water. Right? And so I have a very direct concern around this. Going a step back before that, a few years ago, the last time I was here speaking, I signed a memorandum of understanding with the town. And part of the understanding of that was that, that town projects that were going to affect me were going to involve consultation. But that doesn't happen. It hasn't happened. And again, I discover projects like this going through the town meeting packets. The last time I was going to build a concrete highway on my land and nobody bothered to pick up the phone and call me. This is not as big a project, but I pick up the board packet and I see a project described as a repair that describes putting in a pipe that has more than 2 times as much capacity as the existing one. So that's very alarming to me, and to me, it goes to some of the issues that I thought had been resolved when I signed a memorandum of understanding with the town about managing the water on Bottle Branch. You're going to replace this with double wall plastic pipe?
I don't know if it'll be double wall.
Because the 18-inch pipe, well, okay, the point is also that 18-inch pipe is not an 18-inch pipe. Like an 18-inch double wall pipe is probably going to carry, what, 50 or 60% more water than a single wall terracotta pipe? So even if you do 18 for 18, you are going to be adding to the flow. Now, my objective here is not to stop anybody from repairing their drain line. But you have to understand that for 30 years, the town has known that the major problem is are the culverts under Route 113, which are massively insufficient, right? And the Band-Aid sort of process that we're doing a little project here, a little project here, a little project here, what it's doing is shunning water off onto my land. And I know that you can show in a calculation that, you're not going to adjust this. I actually had training relevant in this area too. I have a graduate degree in land planning, and I've also lived there and seen it all my life. And I can tell you that all the development upstream is pushing a lot more water onto me, and I'm getting a large area flooded on my land down here around 113. And this increase is going to add to that problem. And even if you present me with a calculation that says that it won't, like if you were going to do a 24-inch pipe, I'm not going to believe you. And I have my own 2 eyes and my own experience and my own training to understand that. What I've been saying to the town and what I continue to say to the town about Bottle Branch watershed is that I think that we've got like 5 or 6 different sets of people in Bottle Branch watershed that have problems. And it's a system. It's not a point. It's not a fix a little thing here, fix a little thing here, fix a little thing here. And what I would like to see is a proper planning process around this where you bring the people together, each of the different constituencies that have problems, and you look at Bottle Branch as a system, and you design a solution to this, because there are going to be different financial implications of different options. There's going to be trade-offs. Not everybody's going to get exactly the drainage that they want within, because we don't have a printing press for money. But a real proper planning process where we define the problems, you get the people who are affected at the table, and you try to come up with what is the best solution instead of doing Band-Aids. And I really, really don't want to pick up the board packet on Friday again and find that a pipe that's going to go onto my land is going in and it's going to deliver more than 2 times, probably 3 times, as much water, 20 or 30% faster than what it does now. That it really bothers me. It really upsets me, especially because I thought that I had an understanding with the town that I would be consulted about this sort of thing.
Thank you. It's following your email as well, Mr. Hammond, we did have a conversation about at what point we were going to have that conversation with you, and apparently the goal was to have that conversation once this funding allocation was completed. So I think that you were on the list of people to have conversation with. I'm glad you're here this evening to address us, but in the future we'll try to do that a little bit earlier.
Yeah, but having a conversation that's, we've approved this and done all the engineering and we're going to do it, that's not a conversation, that's a notice.
That's understandable.
I'm looking for a conversation, and not just about one-off projects, a conversation about the whole dang thing and involving the other people that have problems in Bottle Branch too, working together to try to do it.
Thank you for that. With that being said, we do need some money to be able to accomplish whatever project or replacement or whatever takes place here. As you can recall from the last, what was it, maybe 2 meetings ago with the financial overview, the stormwater fund is not in a position to handle large capital items like this for replacement. There are some funding options that are available to the town. Town Administrator Fleetwood or our Finance Director Natalie Slay can maybe bring us up to speed as to what those may be and their recommendations for covering them.
Natalie and I have had a couple conversations regarding this. First of all, the engineer's estimate, which includes a 20% contingency, we're looking at about $99,000.
How much?
$100,000. Okay? And Darrell, correct me if I'm wrong, should this, get the green light and get things going, the modeling is something that we still would want to do, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, and the modeling itself, an estimate is somewhere between $5,000 and $8,000. So we're looking at, just shy of $110,000.
So Jeff, I don't mean to interrupt, but this is for 24 inch.
Correct.
Are we not doing a?
We're looking at 18 inch.
Okay.
But it's going to be a nominal.
Nominal change.
Would you agree?
Yeah, the only problem is, we can order the pipe today, but they're telling me anywhere between 6 and 9 months. So I can't rush it, I can't do nothing, no factor. That's what our suppliers told me, so I really can't say right now because I give the estimate of what they give me to Darrell, and that's what it's across the board. I asked him tonight, and he's saying stuff that usually took 14 weeks, he's at 52 weeks. I don't know. I can't make them make it no factor. They're saying it's waiting for the ships to come in with the supplies to make the material, so.
So to pay for it, we see 3 options. 1, to draw it from the general fund reserve. 2, go to the bank. Or 3, this is a qualifying expense under the ARPA monies. And I've included in your packet the language that highlights that under the ARPA monies. I think everybody understands the bank and...
Well, and just to discuss that a little bit, so the bank comes with an interest payment attached to it. So there's going to be an interest expenditure on top of the $110,000 that would be borrowed in principal. So that's one thing to keep into consideration. Also, the borrowing power of the fund, I don't think is really suitable for a good lending position. Do you think, Natalie?
The repayment.
Yeah, the repayment's going to struggle, but the bank's going to see that and not make us a good candidate for lending.
Right.
So I think we could effectively cross the bank off of our list with stormwater. So the funding mechanisms for this are to either pull from the general fund reserve, which is not advisable, or to use the ARPA money, which is a little bit sooner than what we had originally discussed as far as trying to develop a plan first for that, which we are still working toward. But this expenditure, like Jamie mentioned, does have a lead time out 6 to 9 months and a failing pipe currently in the middle of a residence driveway.
If I may real quick, take a look at the picture that you have there. This is, in my opinion, a very unique parcel of land. And again, we don't have a north-seeking arrow here, so we're going to make the assumption that the top of the screen is north for a moment. When you take a look at this, you've got the existing piping that runs pretty much dead center of that driveway coming off Washington Street. And it has sinkholes up and down the driveway. And then you can see where that line veers off and goes on a 45 and then another 45 and then all the way out to Bottle Branch. The thing that's pretty interesting about this, if you go on site where that piping runs off of Washington Street down the center of the driveway, the town's electric utility runs pretty much in line with that line where that pipe is, because when this was all done back in, well before my time, the property line for that piece of property was where the power line was. So over time, the owner of that property or owners past had procured an additional piece of ground. So now in turn what we would have to do is establish another right of way on the new property line and run that pipe so that we don't have this problem, down the road with the driveway again. But if you take a ride out there, the occupants, the owners of that property have been very reasonable, but they've got an issue smack dab center of their driveway.
It's not fair.
Now, with that being said, if we do make the decision to use the ARPA money, we'll put it at a max of $110,000. And what's the available contingency within the fund currently? Anybody know?
We received the first half of it, so it's two.
The contingency within the budgeted amount of the stormwater fund. I think it's like $6,000.
Are you talking about the stormwater?
Stormwater, I'm sorry. Yes.
It's not, it's minimum.
No, nothing really got ours.
Yes.
So
Jeff,
to use,
I'm sorry, can you just?
$7,800 to be exact.
Thank you.
Can you restate the change in the motion, please?
Yes. Seeking a motion approving a request for funding for replacement repair of the town stormwater piping located at 105 Washington Street and funding of a downstream model
For an 18-inch pipe.
for an 18-inch pipe.
And the funding request is not to exceed $110,000
Correct.
from ARPA.
Does that sound good, Darrell?
I would like to offer WEA that during that planning stage, before we put any applications in, I can offer to meet with Hammond, the town, whatever work session we want to do. I want there to be some level more clarity before we take next steps and go for the design and go for any permit.
And as this stuff comes out of the Maryland Department of Environment, make sure we brief Mr. Hammond as well so that he's got all that same information. All right, so the request is to use ARPA money, but I think that we have to have a consensus not to use the bank and not to use the general fund reserve. Is that the consensus of the group?
Yes.
Okay, so we can cross those both off of the list, and the item on the agenda is to fund with ARPA at up to $110,000.
So do you want me to?
I'll make that motion as stated by Jeff.
Yeah, second.
So I have a motion to fund the stormwater pipe replacement for 105 Washington Street using ARPA funds not to exceed $110,000 with an 18-inch replacement. Motion's made by Councilmember Nur, second by Councilmember Orris. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And let the record reflect that motion 2021-24 as previously stated passed unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Catherine. And Mr. Hammond, I will commit to you, as what Darrell said, before anything begins, we'll summons one another.
Very good. I hope the town will take my suggestion that maybe a more comprehensive, system-oriented approach might be taken here. So we're not just pushing water around and maybe addressing it more systematically.
Can you do me a favor? Can you think about the pinch points in the system as it relates to Bottle Branch, and we'll do the same as well. Try to come up with a list of some of those parties or affected areas, and then let's try to have a sit down and discuss them. All right, thank you, I appreciate that.
I do have a question for Mr. Hammond. Have you contacted the state regarding the culvert under the 113?
My understanding is that well, I say that on the basis of just simple observation and an engineering report that was prepared for the town in the 90s that I have a copy of, that is the culverts. My understanding is that the town has to ask the state if the culverts were to be addressed. But there's also potentially downstream issues now with that, so it is not simple. No, I have not.
Okay, I'm just wondering.
Yeah.
And coordinate with Darrell on that and see if there's an approach, if there's something that we can do at this level to reach out to a state agency. We're willing to look at that. But coordinate with Darrell and the town administrator, and we'll make sure that we can at least try to figure out.
I never gave it a moment's thought that I would actually, as an individual, have any possibility of getting anywhere with the Maryland Highway Administration. My assumption was that
sometimes we struggle as well. So. So, thank you. Up next, agenda item number 6 is the town administrator's report.
Mayor, I do not have a report this evening, other than what I'd like to do is, I know this past weekend, Fiddler's Convention happened. Again, I know I was down here on Saturday. My hat goes off to the Berlin Police Department, my hat goes off to the Electric Department, my hat goes off to Water, and also to Public Works, and to Ivy for, it was I thought a very well-received. The weather couldn't have been better. There are lots of people in town. I know we had some issues, but it is what it is in that. So I do, Mayor, I'd like to just slide right into the departmental report. Kelsey Jensen and Ivy Wells are both not present this evening. So from Ivy's world, she wants to publicly acknowledge Jimmy Charles. Jimmy Charles is getting all the acknowledgments. Jimmy Charles and Garrett Neeb for the outstanding help during this year's Sunday's Farmers Market. Halloween pumpkin scavenger hunt starts October 1st out by the Welcome Center to pick up an entry form and a pumpkin location list. Then stroll around town to find all 20 pumpkins. More information at the Welcome Center and on BerlinMainStreet.com. And it is Ivy's birthday today, so she...
Happy birthday, Ivy.
Happy birthday, Ivy.
Wherever you're at.
I hope you're not watching.
Kelsey wanted me to remind everyone that this coming Wednesday, day after tomorrow, from 11 to 12, in the chamber, flu vaccines and all the other and sundry vaccines that Rite Aid is offering. So if you've not registered, you can shoot Kelsey an email. She can get you the registration form, 11 to 12 in here. Okay?
She needs that soon though, because they have to bring
Yes.
the appropriate number of vaccines with them.
So if you've not replied and said that you're coming,
Tomorrow.
do me a favor tomorrow, give a call to me. I think Kelsey's off tomorrow.
She is on
Yeah,
tomorrow.
but just give me a call and we'll reach out to Rite Aid and make sure that they've got you included. So they're gonna bring a couple, 3 extra of each shot, but just let me know if you're gonna be here. Our nationwide 457 rep, Richard Gennardi, will be here Friday, October 8th from 9 to 1 in the chamber. Kelsey wanted me to share that she attended the United Way of the Lower Shore kickoff with Mary on 9/21. Pledge forms will be distributed soon for the 2022 calendar year. And then we did finish each year following the end of the fiscal year. Chesapeake Employers Insurance Company, that's our workers' comp carrier, they do an audit on the prior year. And what a workers' comp audit is all about, you pay a premium based off your payroll dollars. At the end of the year, they capture what did you really spend in payroll dollars. So it's a, I don't want to call it a crapshoot because it's not. But my hat goes off to Kelsey. This year, we're actually getting a refund. It's a whopping like $50. But the reality on something is that's pretty good damn planning to come in that close. So thanks to her. And that concludes those 2 reports as well, Mayor.
Thank you. While you're on the topic of the Fiddlers Convention, I know we discussed it, but just for everybody else watching at home, the stage placement will be parallel with Main Street in the future.
Stage placement going forward will be parallel to Main Street.
Any questions for the town administrator or in reference to the economic and community development office?
Wait, parallel to Main Street, so that would be in front of Rain?
No, I think it would probably be on this side.
If it's on the
Maybe
clock
not.
side, it'll be parallel with the curb.
Or Jefferson.
Anything on Main Street, it's going to be parallel.
I think in the past, it's also been like Broad Street, it's been here as well. Just, any questions for the town administrator?
Yeah, how many times, where that just happened?
Huh?
The parallel versus what it was the other day.
No, so that was something that came up, I would say, a few years ago, I think.
Yeah.
And there was a discussion about trying to move that parallel. With some events, it tends to change just based off of the traffic patterns, but we're going to try and make a better attempt at making it.
What happens in fairness, and I know the chief can add some light on this as well, but in fairness, when you put this stage up and you put it, let's call it like it is, the hot spot in town is right here. Okay? So when you put it up out here perpendicular to the road, what it does, in theory, it creates a false wall, and it shuts off everything on the other side.
A false closure.
False closure.
Got you.
Thank you. So the right way, I mean, I would have thought, I know that for Small Town Throwdown and then also for Fiddlers, we had it cattywamped a bit on a 45 for the first event, and then the second it was over 45. You still have a gap, but again, you get that false.
It's a perception.
It's a perception.
That nothing is beyond it.
But if it's parallel, is it gonna sit in the street junction, like is it gonna sit?
No, it'd be on the clock.
Oh, okay.
So the folks be sitting in Broad Street.
Right.
Yeah,
Change the focal point.
yeah.
All right. Up next are departmental reports, and we'll start with Dave Engelhardt.
Don't have anything further to add tonight.
Thank you. And then our electric utility director, Tim Lawrence.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I just have a few things on Prospect Drive. We installed the new underground service. Let's see. On Flower Street, that's Uncle Willie's, the townhomes there, and where they're building that new apartment building. We've been working with them. They're upgrading all the electrical on all the apartments, the townhomes, so we're working with outages and working with the developer on that. And then also in Henry Park, we helped remove a couple of dead trees in Henry Park with Public Works. And then the big project has been the downtown trimming of the trees for the lighting project. And then also the power plant roof that was being repaired and basically redone has been completed. You got some before and after pictures. I guess you can tell the difference there. It drastically needed some work, which they replaced any rotten facial board on the outside of the building. And then they actually put 2 coats so that that system on there. Just so you know, this is the same contractor that did AGH Hospital, so they're very professional. And one other thing is the manufacturer that actually manufactures that membrane that goes on there, they actually have to come out and inspect it. The manufacturer does to make sure that the contractor actually installed it properly before they warranty it, the work. That's the manufacturer that actually builds stuff that goes on there. Anyway, that project has been completed, and then this week, starting tomorrow, we'll be out meter reading. So we'll be out in people's yards and things for the next couple of days.
And Mayor, before you move on, the one thing, I'm going to put Tim on in the hot seat for a second. About Walker and Caleb have been here now 2 years?
2 years.
So about 2.5 years ago, we came to the council and the mayor and asked for you all to make an investment, which you did, for 2 linesman apprentices. They are now just about at the 50% mark.
Caleb's a little bit over.
A little bit over, so making progress, and this is the furthest we've had an apprentice go since Tim and I have been here.
That's correct.
With the program, so we're making progress. So again, I think it was an investment.
Yep.
Well worth what we're paying for that, so.
And Walker actually just completed step 4 out of there's 8 steps to the program. It's a 4-year program. He just completed step 4, and Caleb just completed step 5. So they're getting there.
Thank you.
Okay.
Tell them both congratulations.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions for our electric utility director? All right, up next is our chief of police, Arnold Downing.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. We've had a busy last 2 weekends. First weekend being, and again, the busy itself has been mostly a good busy. Bike week was uneventful for us in that sense. Both American Legions had large crowds of guests over the weekend, and the downtown actually had a lot of bikers here without any type of incidents with them. On the second weekend, we had the Fiddlers Plus, the H2I. It wasn't as bad as what Ocean City thought it was going to be, and I think it was because of the proactive approach that Ocean City and the county law enforcement actually took. There was quite a few accidents in the county, and we're blessed not to have any of those. So, again, we had a lot more calls for service. We had a lot more people working, but again, it was uneventful in that sense. Trick-or-treating will be October the 31st. That is actually on Halloween. We are advising folks if they do not want to participate in trick-or-treating, the police have the lights off. We will be there reviewing the sex offender list and making sure all of those people are under compliance, and we'll be periodically checking those homes. And we will attempt to go ahead and find people to go ahead and check candy downstairs. If we don't get someone to go ahead and volunteer, we'll actually have some of our staff come in and take care of that. Trick-or-treating is 5 to 7, as always. So those are the big highlights, and we will be pushing out the safety tips on the town website and actually on our website or on our Facebook pages. So that's where we're at right now.
Thank you. Regarding Halloween, is there still going to be a street closure this year for Washington or no?
Again, we haven't had anyone say it, but again, we'll go ahead and find out that. And the big thing is, with the pandemic, if they are doing anything, we're definitely blocking. I don't think it's going to be very difficult to move forward with that. But again, we have time enough to come back to you guys to get that direction.
Well, Chief, actually, excuse me, Mr. Mayor, after our discussion, I did reach out to some folks on Washington, and although they're not doing a theme, they are planning on having fun. So that may be, we may want to entertain that closure.
So would that need formal approval here at this level, or could we just have the barricades and stuff ready and then we'll make that decision as it gets a little closer?
We block the streets once we got direction. So again, we don't generally need approval for a 2-hour period. But again, if the council wants to go ahead and do that, it's okay. But again, we generally don't need the approval itself for that short period of time.
We'll make sure that the barricades are there for Washington.
Right. And again, we'll get up with Jimmy and the crew. They're always cool. All they have to do is drop them off, and we will take care of the rest for that evening.
Chief, was there any consideration to do it on the 30th, which is a Saturday, as opposed to Sunday, which is a school night?
Yes, 2 things, and that's why it's 5 to 7, because again, on Monday when we have it, Tuesday and Thursday, confusion. And guess what Saturday is? Saturday's for adults. If we go ahead and do it on Saturday, which we actually do, we kind of go ahead and tell folks, adults don't have it on Saturday, try to have your parties on Friday. So first thing is we don't want to confuse folks on what day it will be, because they will be here 2 days if you go ahead and say Saturday, because they'll be here then, and they will be here Sunday, no question. But again, we'll go ahead and push out that Saturday is for the adults and Sunday is for the kids. And with that type of thing, we generally go ahead and get compliance. When they're really blended together, we have some issues and trouble.
So Saturday, everyone's invited to Jack's house?
Definitely. And again, the costume parties for the adults and all those things, you know, they're going to happen. And if we push it towards that, and the kids, we really are pushing. And again, we say kids, it's families. So hopefully the families will be coming out on Sunday.
And Sunday's at Kenwood Court.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any questions for the chief?
Definitely, First Baptist and Sunrise will definitely enjoy everybody being out there on Sunday the 31st.
I just want to make sure we are planning on barricading Washington.
We got it.
He'll take care of it.
Okay.
If you definitely said that they're going to do a thing, we always push back. So,
yeah.
Any further questions for the chief of police?
Thank you, Chief.
You're welcome.
Up next, Finance Director Natalie Slay.
Good evening. TKS & Company have finished fiscal 21 audit. Everything went really well. They will notify us soon with the preliminary date when they will come and discuss the draft. Tomorrow at 9 o'clock, Jeff and I are meeting with Jin Alloy to discuss the water and sewer rates review. It is not a study. After we review what she has prepared, she would come to the meeting, I believe it's the next one coming up, to present it in front of you and answer any questions if you would have. Friday, Town of Thurmont is visiting. We have some representative from Finance and Billing Department to come and spend with us a couple of hours to learn more about our Tyler technology financial software. They're thinking of implementing on their site. They contacted me today and would like to come and visit with us.
Who is that now?
Town of Thurmont.
Vermont.
Vermont.
Camp David.
David.
Camp David.
All right, any questions for our finance director? All right, up next is Water Resources, Jamie Latcher.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'll keep mine short. We've replaced a couple water and sewers the last 2 weeks. As Tim said, we will be meter reading this week. We actually started some of ours today because we had a couple guys taking classes, and Megan had a little baby girl, which is superintendent of wastewater. She had a baby girl Friday, Addison May. So we got our basket and some cards and stuff. So that's all I have.
Everybody's healthy?
Yes.
All right, up next is our Superintendent of Public Works, Jimmy Charles.
Hello, Mayor and Council.
I know, I just like saying it. It's like, Jimmy Charles.
The team of Electric, Water, Sewer, and Public Works was able to set up and tear down at the Fiddler's Convention, and everything went smooth. Tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, we're going to test fit one of the backboards at Herring Park. We got the new backboards in Henry Park. Sorry. And and we got them all assembled. We got one assembled, and we're going to test fit it tomorrow. Make sure everything's ready for that. The pavilion roofs at Henry Park and Decatur Park are scheduled to be replaced within the next 2 weeks. And we planted some black-eyed Susans outside of the town hall building last week.
Thanks for the generous donation from Carter Cat. I'm surprised you didn't say anything to him about the ribbon cutting. But the black-eyed Susans look beautiful, so pretty when they started to give them away. Found a nice little home for them right there, so. Well, good job on the planning. You all have between.
New beautification committee.
Let me tell you a little bit about Mr. Jimmy Charles. Okay? Not only did he remove the stone, put in new topsoil, planted the black-eyed Susans. You know what he did today?
Watered them, I hope.
They weren't, well, he did that too, but he wanted them all dressed right, so he goes to Home Depot and comes back with dowel rods. If you take a look, got them all dressed right. Jimmy Charles.
Well, thank you, Jimmy. And Tim, thank you to your department for the green thumbs that kept them alive between the unveiling of the solar canopy to finding their way to town hall. Any questions for Jimmy Charles? No? Okay. Up next is our Deputy Town Administrator, Mary Bolden.
The only thing that I have, and I had actually really kind of hoped that we would still have some audience and reporters present, just a reminder to anyone and everyone, the Maryland 211 system. It is a really great catch-all for all kinds of assistance in the state for both individuals and businesses as needed. Just wanted to sort of re-emphasize that system is out there. Website is 211md.org, or you could simply dial 211, like you would 411 or 911. The only other thing that I had was a reminder that next Wednesday, October the 6th, is Walk Maryland Day, and the Worcester County Health Department is sponsoring scavenger hunts, self-directed scavenger hunts at a number of parks throughout the county. Details can be found on their website, justwalkworcester.org.
Thank you. Any questions for our Deputy Town Administrator? All right, up next, comments from the council, agenda item number 8, Vice President Burrell.
I just have two things. The first is a thank you to Tim for addressing the safety issue related to your staff.
Yes.
I am so glad that you made that crystal clear, how important it is to you and your operation of keeping your folks safe.
Yes.
So thank you. And to the public, I would like to say, tonight we discussed short-term rentals, and we are still taking input from you. So if you have an opinion you would like to share, you can do it by email, because I've been getting a lot of email related to this subject, and we still have time for more of your input, so feel free.
Thank you. Councilmember Purnell?
Notice on the schedule that on the 27th of December, we have a council meeting scheduled. I would like to make a motion that we cancel it.
I think that also, I thought when we adopted the council meeting schedule, we dropped that last one.
Did we?
I'm pretty sure we did.
I think it was discussed, but it was decided not to make a decision at that point. That's my recollection.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Purnell and a second by Councilmember Burrell to cancel the February 27th meeting. December 27th meeting, 2021. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, let the record reflect that it was a unanimous vote to cancel the December 27th meeting.
Dean voted for all of us.
Now, with that being said, when we bring up the schedule, we'll drop that last one.
For
For
22.
2022,
Certainly.
we'll drop that last one. If anybody wishes to see that reappear, make a motion and we'll do that at that time. Councilmember Nichols,
Oh, man, I was hoping I was last.
you can go last if you'd like.
Bet, I'll go last.
Okay, Councilmember Nerd,
Thank you.
No report at this time.
Councilmember Worth.
Yeah, just one thing, actually, I'd like to remind everybody, watching, listening at home, that we do have committee openings, and you can apply online through the town website. It's under the, About Our Town, Mayor Become Involved. And, I know I'm personally sharing it on my Facebook, my social media. So, yeah, there's openings, check them out, see what might interest you, and get involved. And that's all I have.
Thank you. And to your point also, I think we'll add, there's a button if you go to the bottom of the Become Involved where the application is, it routes you to the boards and commissions page, but there's nothing that routes you from boards and commissions to the application side.
Okay.
So I think we'll add it there as well. So there's at least 2 points of attempts to try to make contact with you.
Can I also add, if you have difficulties with the site, I'm sure you could just call Town Hall as well.
With finding the location, yeah, call the mayor's office, so that's 410-641-3858, and you'll get the true mayor of Berlin, Ms. Joanne Unger. So, Council Member Nichols, you are up.
I'm sorry, it slipped my mind. Anyway, it's still September, last week of September. I will get on that soapbox one last time. It is Emergency Preparedness Month. If you are not prepared for whatever may be coming your way, loss of power, loss of water, storm, what have you, check your batteries and all of those little things, do that now. It's almost October, don't forget, because we're about to turn our heat on and we want to make sure that everything works. So please be prepared and don't save it in the morning. Secondly, my condolences to all the families of staff members who have lost loved ones in the last week. It's been some crazy times. So we do, as a group, of course, give our condolences. But I thought, as I signed all of those cards today, wow, don't take any of those things for granted. Hence, preparedness in every sense of the word. Also, Yeah, good night. I can't, whatever it was, it went right over my head.
It's okay.
Have a good night, guys.
And agenda item number 9, comments from the mayor. I have none this evening. Agenda item number 10, comments from the public. I don't see any. Agenda item number 11, comments from the press. None. And agenda item number 12, Councilmember Brewer.
Move to adjourn.
All in favor, say aye. Thank you. Okay, summarize that.
Oh, that was so nice of you. Thanks.
You're welcome. Can we get the chair for you through?
No.
Councilmember Nichols, I think you should have a paper. You can start scribbling the notes before we
No,
start.
it took me long way.